You're wrong. It's not all men. It's just the young ones. This is part 2 of me analyzing GUYLAND by Michael Kimmel. According to Kimmel, guys of all ages and ethnicities can potentially watch porn, but how they view it is what changes throughout their lifetime. I mean, let me just start by saying that the vast majority of porn is consumed by white young men aged 18 to 26. Believe it or not, black men of this age group paled in comparison. They were somewhat into it. Asian guys in this age group were completely offended by it. What's not to be offended by? All of these Asian women are running around with these love you long time fake Asian accents. It is all made for white men because the Asian man is never present in these videos. In fact, a little bit of porn that is aimed at minorities has SEO that's rather offensive. Some of these ideologies put into these keywords date all the way back to slavery. It panders racism because it's made for white young boys. And there's a distinct difference in preference between younger men and older men, whereas younger men are into violence because their life is inundated with violence from the media. All of these guy podcasts are aimed at revenge for women not giving them sex, inciting anger. That spills over into the porn that they watch. Even doing these interviews in this book, the young men continually used words like bitches and HOs, stuff like that, while the older men just used woman, girl. And this also spills into how these young men handle rejection. Rather than like an older man accepting it and being sad about it, they actually get angry and vengeful. And a slew of researchers from University of California, Santa Barbara, UCLA, University of Alabama found that watching violent porn produced some behavioral and attitudinal changes among young men who were more likely to subscribe to various great myths. But within 2 months, these attitudinal changes subsided. Only the most extreme imagery would cause long-lasting effects. This didn't change when they took porn out of the equation and just showed violence. They concluded that this was actually caused by the violence and not the porn itself. So a lot of people and organizations are out here saying that porn is causing violence in these young men, but that's simply not the case. It's the other way around. There is causation because this violence in porn is actually made for this age group of buyers. They analyze the data and this is what they want to see, so they're giving it to them. So rather than seeing this as an offense from the porn industry, why don't we see it as a big mirror that you really don't want to look in? There's a sense of entitlement with young guys that dissipates a little bit as they get older. Young guys feel like everything is owed to them. The economy, women's bodies, everything is owed to them. And once they get older and mature, they sort of realize they're not going to be a famous influencer with a podcast and be worshipped by many. That's not the path for the vast majority, and that's normal. There's no one really there to tell them that it is normal. So a lot of them get really vengeful for a while before they finally accept it. And why this book did a really good job at telling the story, they really haven't put any afterthought into how are we going to fix this? Because these are growing boys who are trying to become healthy men. They're just really misguided by each other. Because in most societies where men have had rituals of becoming a man, bar mitzvahs and stuff like that, there really isn't that in our Western world. Men are left thinking, am I a man? And they feel the need to prove it. And instead of the older men initiating them into manhood, it's their peers, guys who don't even possess manhood, who are giving it to others. And this causes a lot of confusion and misinformation. And then once you believe this misinformation, regret. Why is it happening to me? Am I the only one? No, babe, it's just not true for anyone. It's total misinformation. GUYLAND is fake. As a matter of fact, Loftus writes, the men who do not feel secure in their manliness, who do not feel a solid part of the larger culture, who are more likely to take pornography's lies seriously and to abuse the women in their lives. The men that were interviewed spoke much more with contempt than they ever did with desire. And I think that that says a lot about how manhood is handled in our culture and the ways we could possibly change it. The biggest consumers of this stuff are young men age 18 to 26. The porn industry describes them as angry, sexually frustrated, and eager to exact some sort of revenge on women. Journalist Robert Jensen interviewed a lot of these porn producers. The astounding common theme was violence against women. That's just what their customers want to see. It's actually older men who are more likely to want to see porn where the woman is actually enjoying herself legitimately. And I think that this anger says a lot about our young boys and the perils that they actually do go through. And instead of turning our backs on them, I think we should extend our hand to them. Instead of wanting to seek revenge on the women and minorities who are creeping into their all-white male spaces like university campuses and sports arenas, we need to all kind of unite. Because corn does rear its ugly head with the way that men perceive women. In corn, women are one-dimensional, immediately orgasmic, and male-centered in their ideologies. But in real life, women are much smarter than that. They have feelings and demands, and they believe themselves to be entitled to at least a modicum of dignity, respect, and care. This is where guys get cognitive dissonance because women ask for basic respect because they thought that this was real. They thought this was how women were. This is driving a wedge. These young guys think it's a us versus them sort of dynamic with the young girls, and this causes them to miss out on a lot of very important milestones with girls that are supposed to help them manage long-term relationships later in life. And people can say whatever they want about this, but by not having Schmex Ed in school, we are doing these young men and women a disservice. They have no frame of reference to go off of except this. And it's everywhere. You can't escape this stuff. It's everywhere for these young guys. Every media team knows that the biggest group of consumers for this kind of media, or any kind of media, honestly, is white guys aged 18 to 26. It's impossible to escape, so counterintelligence is honestly the only way. According to Naomi Wolf, it may even be the case that GUYLAND is responsible for deadening male libido in relation to real women. If you're a young guy and you're seeing this, know that you will one day be seen as the bigger man by all of your friends for denying GUYLAND. Like and follow if you want GUYLAND Part 3.